Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me on my Patreon tier Service Dog Questions Answered. My name is Sally Fowler. I'm the owner and trainer for Disabled Advantage Dog Training. And today with me, I'm doing something a little bit different for this question. I'm interviewing another type of service dog team to give you guys a different perspective and to give you a break from listening to me talk for 45 minutes. With me here, I have Harmony and their dog, Red. So, Harmony, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your condition, whatever you feel comfortable with sharing.
So, my name's Harmony. I'm about to go into education and teaching. I'm going to be teaching English language arts, and I'm starting to navigate that as a service dog handler. I have a laundry list of diagnoses, as I feel like most service dog handlers have. I have postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, better known as POTS, inappropriate sinus tachycardia, orthostatic hypotension. We're possibly looking at Addison's disease, and just some other minor things, having a lot of allergies, things like that. Reddington helps out with most of them and makes some of the others worse.
Didn't you pop up with fibromyalgia?
Oh, and fibromyalgia.
Too? Yeah.
I always forget there's so many to remember.
Yeah. Once you start adding on more, it can
Oral allergy syndrome, too.
Yeah, it can be difficult to remember all of them, for sure. How did you decide to work with a service dog?
Originally, I decided not to. And then I kind of had to. So, originally...
and by originally, like, how long ago was originally for you?
Like 5 years ago. 6 years ago.
Okay.
Roughly. Maybe longer. 8 years ago. So 8 years ago, I was just trying to figure out what was wrong with my body, and instead, well, I guess, you know what? I messed that up. This all started when I was 10 years old. I guess that's when we first started looking at being messed up in the body. And I started seeing a cardiologist. And the cardiologist could not figure out what was wrong with me. Mm-hmm. And there was just a lot of the beginning was just trying to find a medication that would work. Mm-hmm. But because the cardiologist didn't know what was wrong with me, every single medication was failing or making other symptoms worse or making the original symptoms that we were trying to fix worse. And so we kind of gave up on the medication route. And then I saw a new cardiologist, and they also couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And she was a specialist at the Children's Hospital in St. Louis. We tried some more meds, and we tried some at-home fixes like intaking more water, doing more salt, some specific exercises, things like that. Going through a lot of that for years and years, like 10 years is when I finally was like, okay, I have to do something. Like, meds obviously aren't working. The therapy's not working. The, exercise therapy that they wanted me to do. I'm drinking as much water as humanly possible and peeing every 5 minutes.
And that's safe, because there is a limit to how much is safe to drink water.
Exactly. And because I'm having to take so much sodium, which is still upped from where I was back then. Back then, I think I was at 8,000 milligrams at 18 years old or something like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And now I'm at 12,000.
And you're tinier.
Yeah, I'm pretty small.
So.
So yeah, essentially what it finally came down to was that I had tried almost every single medication on the market that was safe for me to try. None of them worked. I tried different exercise things. I tried different at-home things. I've tried like all the like POTS remedies that people suggest you on Facebook, like beetroot powder. Mm-hmm. I've tried those, and nothing was helping. At least not enough to make my daily life worth living. Mm-hmm. So I met a service dog handler and kind of got the lay of the land from them.
Were they a POTS handler?
No, they had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Probably not the best handler to be my first intro into the community. Her dog bit me in the face.
Awesome. That dog should not have been working.
No. And then it bit 3 more people.
Cool. Not cool.
No.
Definitely not cool.
Definitely don't do that.
That was sarcasm.
So I just kind of started with Coco, who was previously just a pet. I just started task training her for things at home. I didn't intend to work her in public access, especially because she's a bully breed, and realistically, the chances of her working out were extremely slim because bully breeds are genetically predisposed to dog aggression and high prey drive. I didn't want to risk something happening and my dog getting put to sleep, or my dog injuring another actual service dog. Like, that was scary for me. So,
and the laws on that breed keep fluctuating as well, depending on state to state, and that's a concern for anybody who owns those breeds as well.
Exactly. And trying to travel with a service dog. Like, it doesn't matter that your dog's a service dog when it comes down to it, because police shoot first and ask questions later when it comes to that. Like, there's a dog with a blocky head, and
it's gone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But she ended up working out with public access. She just had the perfect amount of drive of, like, she did what I asked without being over the top. So she ended up doing public access for a few years, but she was already old when we started training, which was sad. And now she's going to be 11 next month. So she retired a couple months ago. We still do the occasional outing, as you might say. Sometimes it's literally just gearing her up, putting her in the car, going to the gas station, and going back home without even taking her out of the car.
Yeah.
She still gets the thrill of it.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And I have met Coco, and she is very sassy as a service dog.
She does not necessarily enjoy her love. Like, she wants to do the things, but on her terms.
On her terms, and she's very serious looking. Mixed with kind of weird looking.
She's kind of a gremlin.
Yeah.
She is a gremlin.
Very much so.
Gremlin ears, at least.
But one of the first things that I was really impressed with when I got to see this team working in public was just how good of a job Coco did maneuvering around a wheelchair, which I hadn't gotten a chance to see yet up close and personal. I'd seen it in videos, but I'd never actually spent time around a dog who did that, and I thought that was really cool, how Harmony'd been able to teach that to Coco.
Especially with her being so old.
Yeah.
Because I didn't start using a wheelchair until shortly before I met you. So that was her after only probably 2 months or so of being around it.
Even more impressive.
She was such an adaptable dog.
Yeah.
Like, she really was just able to adapt to any situation.
Yeah. That was very clear in her.
There were a few things. Like, we took a training trip to the zoo, intending to just be there for maybe 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
She acted like she had never not been at a zoo. So we were able to do a couple hours of just hanging out at the zoo instead of making it a whole training opportunity.
Yeah, that was how it went with Austin, too. We were actually able to be at the zoo for the entire circuit because he just took it in his stride. He thought it was the best thing ever.
It's so nice when that happens.
It is.
It doesn't happen all the time, but when it works out, it's great.
I'm still pretty sure he thought the rhino was a rock that moved and not that it was an animal.
Coco loves the elephants.
But he understood that the penguins were something worth looking at.
Yeah. Well, they're also extremely loud.
They're extremely loud, and they were very curious about him. Like, they even went to the point of going up to each other and nudging each other to come look at the thing that's on the ground out here.
The monkeys were always, like, delighted to see dogs.
The monkeys didn't notice Austin, but we actually noticed they had a baby up in a tree, and Austin started getting his worried face, like when I'm doing an unsanctioned activity.
Nice.
Which we thought was pretty funny. How did you choose owner training? I mean, obviously you met this other handler and talked to them, but why did you not go through a program?
Because of the expense.
Yeah.
That is and on top of that, most programs train for a single disability. And I have a lot of disabilities, all which need different tasks.
Yeah.
So it was either like, you're going to get a dog that's trained specifically for this thing with nothing else, and you're going to pay a lot of money for it, or you're going to train your own. And you're still going to end up spending about the same amount, but it's more spread out.
Yeah.
And you're getting, like, I got more out of it because I have so many other issues. If I maybe just had diabetes, I would probably go to a program because there's so many that train for diabetes, and that would be all I needed it for.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, too, like, most of my disabilities are not things that programs are necessarily training for.
Yeah, because they're not knowledgeable for it, and there's also a lot of incorrect assumptions about some of the different conditions we have. One conception we ran across with programs was that if I'm in so much pain, how am I possibly going to have the energy to care for my service dog? And they didn't understand, which is unfortunate because they train service dogs. They didn't understand that it becomes a symbiotic, self-sustaining system. The more the dog helps me, the more I'm able to take care of myself and the dog. I've also heard from some other teams that once a program trains the dog, they won't let you, like they make you sign in the contract or something that you can't train other tasks on top of it.
A lot of times they also won't let you have another dog at home if it's unaltered.
Yeah.
Or another dog at home at all sometimes.
Yeah. And I can't verify any of that specifically. So if you're interested in a program, you need to talk to that program individually. But those are some things to be aware of. How many service dogs have you worked with, and can you share some of those experiences?
Yeah, so personally, for me, I've had 3 separate dogs. The first was Coco. The ideal was to retire her around 9. Because she's a mutt. She doesn't have the best genetics, and she has a lot of allergies, and she can't do all the tasks that I need from her because she's tiny. She's very small. So she couldn't do any mobility tasks.
Yeah, she was, if you sit in a chair, she was shorter than your knees, or at your knees, right?
About at your knee.
Yeah.
And so I got a standard poodle to take over for her, hopefully before 9. That was Klaus. Klaus was honestly one of the best dogs I've ever had. He was super fast learning, super easy to train. Literally he would pick things up in a single session. And it wasn't like Reddington, he'll pick things up, but we still have to work on it on the next session before I can trust him to be able to do it where we're out. And not that every dog needs to be able to do that, but Klaus could do that. He learned how to push a wheelchair button in one session, and then after that could hit it every single time.
It was just there.
Exactly. So he was just extremely focused, driven. He didn't care for other people, which was the best, because poodles are just pretty much one family dogs. They don't really.
That is not the experience I'm having with my client right now.
I guess it does depend. For the most part, though, poodles aren't as social as Goldens, and not as social as Coco, who is her downfall is people.
Yeah, we're gonna get to Goldens in a second. I have a specific question about that.
Cool, but yeah, Klaus was awesome. He was doing really, really well in his training, and I'm still impressed by how far we got, because when I ended up having to rehome him, he was only 1.5 years old.
Wow.
And he was almost working full public access because he was just so driven to do it. And we were going out every day. It wasn't we only go out sometimes. But he ended up getting attacked by a lady's, quote, registered prosthetic service dog, end quote.
Prosthetic?
Yes. That was the part that really, I hear registered all the time, but prosthetic? What? I have it on video of her yelling that at me as well, after her dog bit mine.
Awesome.
So,
Did she have a prosthetic?
No.
So the dog was her prosthetic?
Yep, somehow.
Yeah, that's
I don't
weird.
think he was manufactured correctly, though, because it did definitely attack my dog.
Yeah.
So...
Didn't tighten all the screws in that one.
So that's what ended his career, and that is why I have Reddington now. I decided to go for a Golden because they tend to bounce back from things like getting attacked a lot better than Poodles bounce back. Poodles are just they're sensitive dogs, and Klaus did not recover. He became extremely dog reactive to the point that, if he heard keys jingling, he would pee himself.
Oh.
Yeah, it was... terrifying for him to go out of the house. And it still is to this day. I keep in close contact with his current owner. She was going to do, dog sports with him, and she can't do it.
Wow.
Because she can't go to classes with other dogs. He's just so scared of them. But he also did get rushed a second time. And that was a couple months after the original attack. So I think that just kind of, like, all the work and progress we had been making after that first attack was gone
Yeah.
by this dog that also wanted to eat him.
Yeah. That's really unfortunate.
And now I have Reddington. And Reddington is a big goofball. Not a lot of brains up there. He's definitely not a thinker. He's a doer. And you better train him what to do, because if you don't, he's going to do the wrong thing. And sometimes even if you train him, he's going to do the wrong thing. So.
Do you consider him to still be in training or finished?
Oh, fully in training. Definitely.
Okay.
He's not finished at all. He's a wild child.
And how old is he?
He's a year, almost 2 years. He'll be 2 years next month, so pretty much 2 years old.
And
Definitely not fully mature yet.
would you describe him as like a soda bottle that's been shaken?
Yes. That is almost perfect, except also make sure that if the soda is supposed to be in the bottle, all the soda is spraying out of the bottle.
Okay, so for anybody considering getting a golden as your service dog to owner train, I only have partial of that in Austin, and I personally don't enjoy living with that.
He's too happy.
Yeah, they're very happy. And if you're personally not an incredibly happy, positive person, living with a golden gets obnoxious pretty quickly.
Also, he is a show field line cross, so if you are considering getting a golden, definitely go with full show line. Don't risk it. Don't think that, oh, well, they have more drive, like I thought. They have too much drive. It's literally like a Malinois in a golden retriever costume.
But you have to be careful with the show line, because show breeders are doing some weird stuff with the structure and the conformation that looks pretty, but that may not necessarily be structurally sound for long-term service dog work. So you do want to double check that against proper service dog structure, as opposed to whatever is currently on trend for show breeders. And the field dogs, I think that works for disabilities where you're constantly needing tasks all day long. But I feel like for me, with the CRPS, it's kind of, I need tasks all day long, but I might go an hour before I need a task. And so you need a dog that can turn off for an hour and sleep. Like right now, while we're recording this, Austin is asleep on the placemat, and
Reddington is trying to eat my feet.
yeah. So you need a dog that can kind of balance some of that out somewhere. And so if you yourself have a really hard time being active all the time, or you don't need a ton of tasks all the time, something super drivey is going to exhaust you. It's going to frustrate you, and you're going to be annoyed.
Yes, you will be very annoyed.
And you're going to have to come up with a lot of ways to keep that dog from destroying your house and your life in general.
That's not to say that Goldens can't do it.
Exactly.
I do think that Goldens are a good choice for some people, but I definitely think that you need to be looking in very heavily at the parent dogs, what their structure looks like, and what their temperament looks like, because Reddington's parents were high drive, and I unfortunately did not go with the best breeder, and I did not go meet the parents beforehand, and I definitely should have. So
Yeah.
if you are looking at buying a dog from a breeder, you need to make sure you are going and meeting the parents.
Yeah. And meeting the parents and watching them move and interacting with them, and do not just blind buy a dog off the internet, because you do not know what you are getting. Okay. We have covered what are the pros about working with a golden. We've heard the cons.
Okay.
What are the pros that you like about Reddington as a golden?
I will say that he definitely wants to work.
Yes. That is
Coco
true.
did not want to work. Reddington wants to work all the time.
Yes.
So that's definitely a pro, because having a dog that doesn't want to work is like not possible when you have a service dog.
Well, it's also like pulling teeth sometimes. I mean, Robbie enjoyed his job, but if my husband was home, he was also very much of the attitude of, "You're home, go help her, I'm resting now."
That's how Coco is. When we're at home, Coco's not tasking. She's
Yeah.
like, you're on your own now, buddy.
And if I like don't need something and it's kind of a dumb ask, Robbie would have ignored it and Coco would ignore it. But Reddington and Austin jump up and are like, yeah, I want to do the thing. It's stupid, but I want to do it because it's my job.
Now tell me to do it again after I've done it. Yeah. Another pro, I think, would just be that he does have the ability to work for long periods of time.
Yeah.
The reason he's having a struggle right now is because he's already worked for 7 hours.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't consider him to be working right now while we're doing this. He's just chilling.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean he is trying to eat my feet. Like, that's his chill for the most part.
Yeah.
He can turn it off when I need him to. Mm-hmm. But, like, it's just kind of trying to find the balance that's difficult sometimes.
Yeah. And, like, right now, Austin is working in the sense that we're out in public, and if I ask him for something, he's going to get up and do it. But Austin, I gave him a break while we're doing this by taking all his gear off and letting him take a nap. So he gets a break from wearing all his clothes. When he gets home, he's going to husky warble at me and run around the house and demand that he be fed as soon as possible.
Goldens are also just very good at generalizing.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, just taking the gear off is enough for them to realize, like, hey, I'm done. Or, like, we were talking about before this, Reddington's realized my schedule already at this new school, and we've been there for 2 days.
Yeah.
And he has already realized that when the students leave at the end of the day and the lights get turned off and I start gathering my stuff, like, he's done. So then he's done. And he is not on his game anymore.
Yeah.
It's not that he's not working. It's that he's like, I can slack off.
He's in silly mode.
Exactly.
Have you noticed a simmer effect in him? I've noticed with Austin, there's some things where I can teach it to him and then wait like 4 weeks and ask him for it, and it's just there. Whereas with Robbie, I had to do a bunch of repetitions.
Kind of.
Okay.
I feel like it's sometimes. It depends on if it's based off of our foundational skills that we taught early on. So, like he knows how to mouth things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so if I were to teach him how to push a new type of button,
mm-hmm.
he could do that the next time.
Yeah.
But if I were asking him to do something that's not based off of a foundational skill, I think he definitely needs some more repetition before we're able to continue using it.
Yeah. What's your advice on looking for a breeder you can trust?
Look at the parent club. That is the first thing you should do. That is something I thought, only old people do this, I'm not going to do it. And I got screwed over. So do not do that. Look at the parent club. Look for recommended breeders. Travel. You don't have to find a breeder in your state. Like, ideally, yeah, that might be great. But if you are stuck on a specific breed, don't go for a lesser breeder just because they're in your state. Look at breeders that are health testing above CHIC standards, because even CHIC standards can sometimes, I guess some people say chic or whatever, but they are not always going to be covering things like structural.
Yeah.
Like, they do to an extent, but not enough. Look for breeders that are going above and beyond, that are working and titling their dogs. Their dogs should be able to do things like get an obedience title.
Yeah.
Get a rally title if you want them for a service dog. Like, and look for things like that if you're going to get a service dog. Don't think that just because their dog's titled in fast cat and dog diving that it's going to make their puppies are going to make a good service dog. Look for things that make sense.
Yeah. And also, one thing that I discovered when I was looking for breeders for one of my clients was that being an AKC registered breeder is a membership thing that you can pay a fee for. It's not actually a stamp of, yes, this person is trustworthy.
Yeah.
So don't fall for that.
Also, in my opinion, obviously other people have their own opinions. If you're going to buy a dog from a breeder, buy a dog that's breeding dogs that are bred to a breed standard, not a cross. Yeah. There are people who believe that there are great working breed crosses, and a lot of programs do use Goldadors, which are a golden and lab cross. And if that works for them, like, awesome, but you can't take your risks. Programs have high washout rates. Only a very small amount of their dogs finish training. Like, we, as owner trainers, cannot afford that.
Right. Now, some of programs do wash out dogs for what I consider to be dumb reasons. I want to be careful how I phrase that. But a lot of dogs get washed out for things that are definitely fixable if they had the time and resources to fix them. Like, one of the most common reasons reasons dogs get washed out is for leash pulling. And if they just actually teach the dog how to walk on leash, that is not a problem, but they don't really have the time to do it properly, so they just don't. So that's something to keep in mind too. And if you come across a breeder who guarantees that most of the litter puppies will be service dogs, they're lying.
Mm-hmm. In reality, like, maybe one or two are going to make it.
Yeah, and there's no such thing as a reputable doodle breeder.
No, there's
not.
While
we're on Goldens. What do you like about working with a service dog? It's been a really hard day for Harmony, so we're going to give them a second to think about this answer.
I will say my symptoms are definitely less. Like, I don't have to deal with as severe of symptoms because my dog mitigates them. So, things like today, he had to pick up my keys, he had to pick up his toy that I dropped, he had to pick up a blanket that was on the floor, and just that little thing is enough so that I'm not changing those strong positions really quickly and making the rest of my day, like, that will take my spoons up so fast. So if he can do things like that, or he elevates my legs if I am having an episode, so that it makes the episode quicker to recover from. So I will say that's probably the best thing, is that I feel like I'm living life instead of just getting through it.
And to be clear, he is not a cure. So he's not a total replacement for medication, but he does things that medication wouldn't have been able to necessarily suppress or prevent.
Exactly. And things that, like, because I've heard people say, well, all of the things that your dog does, like, you can use other things for. I've heard people tell me to carry a weighted blanket with me for DPT.
Those are heavy.
Why would I do that? When this is a weighted blanket on legs that can walk himself around. And he doesn't just do one thing. So, like, it's easier for me to have a service dog because even though I am still taking meds, I don't have to carry something to pick things up with off the floor. I don't have to carry something to put under my legs to elevate them so my blood pressure doesn't drop. I don't have to carry something that's heavy to sit on my legs.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of things that he makes it so that I don't have to do with other things.
Yeah.
It just makes more sense.
And he saves energy that you can use on other things that you want to do with your life, like teaching.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is one of the more beneficial things of working with a service dog for people like us who have very dynamic disabilities, is that it's just, they're more versatile than anything else. They don't have one set purpose. What is something you least like about working with a service dog, or several things?
The public. It's the public. It's the public. It's the public. People. People are the worst. People come up to harass us all the time. It's not necessarily intentional, like, to be mean. Most of the time it is just, like, what they consider to be harmless questions. Like, what's wrong with you? Or, why do you bring that dog in here? Or, can I pet that dog? It's like,
why does he have shoes on?
Why does your dog wear goggles when you're at a concert? Why does your dog do this? Can your dog do this? Why don't you have this breed of dog? Oh, I had that breed of dog and it died.
Is that an ESA?
I also have a service dog, but I forgot his vest and his registration card at home, so he's in the car. People are the worst. It's never ending, and you're expected by the public to just be an educator about service dogs and about disabilities, and to be able to give them your entire health history and tell them what's wrong with them and be their diagnoser. Like, that is most definitely the worst part. And people bringing their pets into places that they shouldn't be and endangering our lives. Like, we've already talked about Klaus. Klaus was attacked because a lady wanted to bring her dog into Waffle House and feed it bacon off of her plate. So, definitely people and the things that they do.
And the people who think that they don't need to train their dog, that if they just have a disability, they can take their dog out in public and their dog will learn on the fly. That's not how it works. We spend a lot of time training our dogs and teaching them how to act in public and teaching them how to do their job in public and how to ignore people trying to feed them and pet them and touch them and distract them. And so all of those are hazards. What else do you What else is hard for you about, I guess, what's your reality insight into training your own service dog?
On the note that you were saying, not training your dog is much more stressful than having a trained dog. Even my trained dog is stressful to take with me. It is stressful to have to consider his needs anytime I need to leave my house. It's stressful to consider, oh, is there going to be a dog in this Walmart when I need to go in and grab a Dr. Pepper? Did I give him enough water today? Has he been out to potty? Like, I'm not just considering who I am, I'm also having to consider him and his training everywhere we go, all the time. Because even when a service dog is fully trained, there are things that you're going to encounter that you haven't encountered with them before, and you might have to run through a couple training exercises. And before that, when you are in the training process, it's constant. Like, if you're at home, you're rewarding for them going and laying on their place. You are training new behaviors. If you're out, you are constantly micromanaging them to make sure that you are giving them positive experiences, but you're also not letting them get away with too much. That you are experiencing new things together, but not burning your dog out. Like, there's just so much to consider when there's another being attached to you at all times, and it is very stressful. It's a lot.
So you would not say that you absolutely love getting to take your dog everywhere with you?
No, I would not. It is draining.
Yeah, and it's not even just like you want to go out with your friend, or you want to hang out with your friend, or you want to go on a date or something, or you want to have date night with your spouse or your partner. Your service dog is still there, and if they have a rough night, you have to hit pause and train them in the moment.
Or leave.
Yeah, done that. And if you do decide, you know what, I need a break from my dog, I'm going to leave them at home, that's still technically a training exercise. You need to leave them in their crate so that they're getting that training, and then come home and get them out of their crate just the right way so you're not teaching them something wrong. And I think the best example I have from my own personal life is I had to train Robbie on my wedding day because we had firearms present just to take photos with, and Robbie saw them and got really stressed out. Even though there were no sounds, he knows what they look like and he has a bad association with them. And I had to spend 20 minutes doing calming training exercises with him on my wedding day so that he would lay down and go back to sleep. And that's something that people just, I don't think they're aware of it.
Yeah, not as exciting or important of a day, but like we went on vacation to North Carolina for a week. And this is when I had Klaus. Mm-hmm. And this was after the first attack when we had been working on building up his PA skills. And he wasn't working full PA at that point. Like, we brought him, but we had rented out a huge beach house. Mm-hmm. So he was more there as a pet than as a service animal. But I decided to take him out one day just because we were going to a lot of shops. It was hot. I was worried about, because the heat stresses me out, walking stresses me out. Mm-hmm. And that in turn makes my symptoms worse. Mm-hmm. So I took him with us, and right as we're in the middle of a beach shop, a Frenchie on a flexi comes flying at us. Oh. And that day that was supposed to be spent shopping and having fun and enjoying our vacation was then spent recovering from that, because not only does it scare the crap out of my poor dog, who is now being charged at after being attacked, but it also is a stressful event for me, and I ended up having a huge cardiac episode from it. Yeah. So, you, like, things like that, or if you just, like, you want to go over to someone's house, if they have a dog, I almost always have to just say, no, I can't come. Yeah. Because I'm not going to expect them to kennel their dog if that's not something that they usually do for us to be there. I'm not going to stress my dog out because they hear a dog barking and scratching at a door, or there's a dog loose in the house that is antagonizing my dogs. Mm-hmm. And I'm also not going to go without him, because being at other people's houses is another thing that's just been very stressful for me my whole life. Mm-hmm. And having a severe medical episode in someone's house is terrifying for me. Yeah. So
and
most of the time it's just going out into public.
You're out of your comfort zone. One thing we discussed, my husband and I talked about a few weeks ago is that, we didn't realize how hard traveling is for me now, but we have our entire house set up for me living with my disability. Mm-hmm. And when we go into other people's homes, their house isn't set up to mitigate and minimize flares for me. And so even something like my dad didn't have an automatic coffee pot, and so it took 7 or 8 more slight hand or arm movements to make coffee than it normally does at home, and that triggered a much bigger flare for me than it should have, and like tiny things like that.
For me, it's like if their couch is low to the ground, mm-hmm. that's a big positional change for me.
Yeah.
So literally just standing up after sitting on someone's couch could cause me to go into syncope mm-hmm. or pre-syncope, which is, for me, worse in my opinion, because it takes so much longer for me to recover from that. Just from sitting on their couch.
Yeah.
So it's not really an option to not take the dog for me.
Yeah.
Unless it's somebody I'm very comfortable around.
And it's a weird thing when you're owner training. You have to be able to compartmentalize yourself sometimes and sacrifice yourself for the sake of the dog's training. Mm-hmm. So, even if you hate crowds, you have to go out of your way to be in crowds to make sure that your dog is okay with crowds so that they can help you be okay in crowds. And today we were at Tractor Supply and we got rushed by a reactive dog at the entrance by somebody who was selling stuff outside this store. And luckily it was tethered, but it startled us and kind of terrifying. And on the way out, I had to pause and take a few seconds before we went through the door to really compartmentalize and rush a bunch of confidence through myself so that I didn't transmit any anxiety through the leash into Austin. And that's something that I don't think people are aware of as being a thing either.
No. And it's definitely not something that is easy either. I feel like people think, well, you've been, because this is my third dog.
Yeah.
I feel like people who don't train dogs think, oh, well, you've been through this so many times. Anytime there's a fake service dog in a store, I still have, literally it just happened last night. We were at Walmart. A lady walks by with 2 terrier something dogs in her cart, and one tried to jump out at Reddington and was barking, and she had to shove it back into the cart. That caused my heart rate to spike over 40 beats per minute.
Yeah.
Just because I've experienced it does not mean that I am able to fully just embrace it.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of mental strength, and there's some things that are just out of your control.
Yep.
Like your heart rate. You can't.
Exactly.
Heart, please stop beating that fast now. That'd be great, thanks.
Yeah, and especially after going through an attack with Klaus, it's 100% a trauma response now. Even here, if I hear dog, jingling, the tags, mm-hmm. somewhere else in the store, even if it's someone's keys, I'm on high alert for the rest of the time I'm in that store, and it's not something that I can just fix on my own.
No, it's absolutely not. And it's so critical to us, too, that we do protect them. And then we're a disabled person standing between 2 dogs, and that's also a really scary place to make yourself stand.
And it's also not even something that, even if you do that, can be avoided.
No.
Because, that's Klaus. I put him behind me as soon as I saw the dog.
Yeah.
And the dog still was the dog was huge. It was able to get past me, and even though I kicked it in the head 4 times, and this dog still was able to get to him.
Yeah. And we had Robbie get body slammed by a few dogs on multiple occasions. I think the only reason Robbie was okay was that he was super resilient in some areas and then just not resilient. He wasn't resilient with the firearms, but with dogs rushing us, he just didn't care, and that helped. But not every dog is like that.
Definitely not.
So I know there's a lot with social media, there's a lot more people talking about all their medical conditions online, which is both super helpful and sometimes not helpful. So what's something you living with these conditions you wish people understood about your condition better? That you feel is more accurate.
Yeah. It does not look the same in every person. I feel like people think of POTS, especially, because that is my main thing that really bothers me. And I feel like most people think about it and they're like, oh, you get dizzy when you stand up. Oh, your heart rate gets a little high. And it's like, yeah, but it's dynamic. Some days I can go without a walker, I can go without a wheelchair, I could go without a service dog, but I don't know when it's going to start getting worse. And for me, it gets significantly worse, significantly faster than most other disabilities. Like a flare-up for my fibro, unless it's something like I fell, like I can feel it gradually coming on. But with my POTS, it could literally just be a dog barking in the store, and now I'm on the ground. And I feel like people think of it just as like, oh, well, you get a little dizzy, you know? But for me, like, it's a full body issue, and it's something that's never going away. It's digestive issues. It's brain fog. It's difficulty with sleeping and eating on a consistent schedule. It's heart palpitations that are so strong I feel like I'm going to throw up. It's feeling dizzy when I get up. But it's also things like air hunger, which is something that I feel like a lot of people don't know about POTS. But they see POTS kind of glamorized in the social media part, and they don't see things like this where, like, I literally feel like I can't get enough air in my body, and I feel like I'm suffocating, like somebody has their hands around my throat.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds terrifying.
It is so scary.
I have times when it hurts to breathe, like when you first come outside, when it's really cold outside, that stab in your chest.
Yeah.
I get that sometimes. It's just a normal
I get it, like, right here.
thing. Yeah. We get it in the sides of our rib cage as well. And it's helpful for me to know those things about POTS, because I don't know a ton about POTS. But it does sound that it's similar to CRPS in the sense that you know there are some things that are definite triggers, like the hot days, and then there are other things that just come out of nowhere. And that's why you do need your service dog with you all the time, even if they, Austin hasn't done a lot of task work today, but if today had been a really bad day, he would have been here ready to do it.
Exactly. And on the note of, like, just, like, flares.
Yeah.
That's the other thing I feel like people don't realize about POTS, is that they think, oh, just, like, standing up is what triggers it, or bending over triggers it. And those are definitely big triggers, but yawning triggers it. Stretching triggers it. Stretching is like, somebody puts me in another dimension.
Seriously.
I can't see after I stretch. If I get a good stretch in, like, sometimes, like, I can do this and this is fine. But if I take both arms back or, like, above my head and I stretch, I can't see, I can't hear. I get a tingly feeling in my mouth. So things like that. Eating triggers POTS.
Wow.
Going upstairs triggers POTS. Sleeping when I first wake up, because I've been in a laying position for so long, getting up from sleeping is a very big trigger.
Now, are those things specific to you, or are those things that you've noticed are a trend across other POTS?
These tend to affect most people.
Okay.
Most of the time, the only things that I've seen that are, like, kind of vary is stress or, like, anxiety. Sometimes that does not trigger other people's POTS. And a lot of these triggers, they might just be minor enough that, like, people either don't realize it until they've been told, like, by the way, this is a trigger, and then they realize, oh, that's why I feel like crap after I eat a big meal.
Yeah, I have conversations with CRPSers, especially new CRPSers like that, all the time. It comes up a lot in my free consults with people, is they, like, describe something. I'm like, yeah, that's the CRPS. That's totally normal. You're not crazy. I promise.
Or I hear things like, people will be like, oh, I really just, like, I don't really like to eat a lot, and they have POTS. But it's sometimes just, like, a thing in the brain that the brain's doing, where it's like, I feel like crap after I eat. Yeah. So let's space that out as much as possible.
Yeah. Things that you don't necessarily understand until somebody helps you draw a line to it. Well, that's been very helpful and very informative. Is there anything else that you would like people to know about POTS service dog teams or service dogs in general?
It's not glamorous. It's not exciting. It's not fun. I don't love being a service dog handler. I've been thinking very hard about not handling a service dog after I get out of college, because I hate having to handle a service dog all the time. So don't jump into it because it's trendy or because you see people doing it online or you know someone who is a service dog handler. Because if you're not spending every day, every minute of every day with a service dog handler, you don't understand the work and the stress that comes from it.
Yeah. Also, if you have social anxiety, don't get a service dog to help with your social anxiety.
It will make it immensely worse.
Yeah. And would you say it's safe to say, I make this as a joke sometimes, but I think I'm probably accurate. I feel like I spend more time with my service dog than I do my husband. Do you feel that
absolutely.
about your, yeah.
Absolutely. And it has created issues in my relationship before because in the beginning when there was not that understanding that we're talking about now of how much work goes into it. Like, somebody sees because we met on Tinder, somebody sees my Tinder profile, they say, oh my gosh, they get to bring their dog everywhere, and they don't realize what goes into it.
Yeah.
Like, my partner was just a little bit frustrated for a while. Or, like, at one point, she even was like, I want to take you out to Texas Roadhouse, but I really don't think that you should bring your service dog because it's so busy and crazy.
Like, that's not how it works.
Exactly. And so it definitely is something that, like, you have to consider. It's going to alter every single part of your life.
Yeah. And that's where I got it was kind of weird with my husband, was that we were actually dating. We weren't even engaged or married when we started training Robbie together. And it was a huge strain on our relationship. But it also was like, when he proposed, he knew what he was getting into.
Yeah.
And it's not the dog you have now. Once you commit to working with a service dog and you found that it's better for your life, like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be training service dogs for myself for the rest of my life. And that's a new dog every, 8 years. And you can jump off the boat, like Harmony's talking about possibly doing. But the sacrifice is, once you've learned how that service dog helps with your life, you know what it's like. And it can be very hard to transition out of the benefits of working with a service dog, even if you get the freedom back.
Yeah. It's a very big decision to be making. Yeah. And it is terrifying and stressful because now, I've understood what it's like to live as a semi-normal person who can go out and do things and enjoy being a human being. Mm-hmm. And now I'm realizing, that might be all stripped for me. I might be able to go to my job and go straight home. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I'm already doing some days. But there are days where, today I was able to come do this and be able to hang out with a friend and just be a human. But if I end up retiring Reddington early, that's probably not something I'll be able to do.
Yeah. I certainly agree with that, and I certainly understand that. And as I've talked about in previous posts, retiring Robbie early was heartbreaking and devastating, and it was like being kicked off a cliff. And there's that too. There's that every 8 to 10 years you get to go through this horrible emotional whirlwind of losing someone you've spent more time with than your spouse or your partner, and then you get to do it all again with a new one.
Also, that's something. Starting over with a new dog is the worst thing ever, in my opinion. Going from a dog who can do it all the time to a dog who knows absolutely nothing is like a slap in the face. Yeah,
and you forget that the new kid doesn't know the same stuff that the old kid had because you have brain fog.
Yeah. I'll tell Reddington to do something in Coco language.
Yeah.
And he's like, what?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excuse me?
Yeah, I had a secret language with Robbie that we worked out when my jaw was dislocated for a month and a half and then shut for another month and a half. And I try to give the same language to Austin, and he's never had that experience, and so he just doesn't know that language, and that's hard.
So I taught Coco to fake alert if I looked at her and raised my eyebrows so that I could get out of social situations. And I do not have that luxury with Reddington because he is not as observant.
Not that we're recommending you teach fake tasks to your service dog.
Yeah, maybe don't do that. I was naive.
Yeah.
But it did get me out of some social situations.
I have CRPS that gets me out of a lot of social situations.
If I really wanted to, I could have just stood up and passed out, so.
Yeah, there is that. Thank you for listening to this, again, characteristically very long Patreon post. I hope you guys have learned a lot. And if you have any questions, please leave a comment in the comment section or send me a message. We're definitely at the end because I'm starting to forget basic words. Thank you for listening.